Morning, folks. Welcome to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Shroyer, your host, and we're in luck because we're on the campus at Kansas State University. We're in Throckmorton Hall, but more importantly, we're at the Kansas State University Soil Testing Lab in the Department of Agronomy. Talking with Dr. Dorivar Ruiz-Diaz, our Extension Soil Fertility Specialist and Director of the Soil Testing Lab. So I think you're going to be interested in how the Soil Testing Lab works, so we'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Shroyer, and with us we have Dorivar Ruiz-Diaz, our Soil Fertility Extension Specialist and Director of the Soil Testing Lab. And if you haven't figured out by now, we're in the Soil Testing Lab. So Dorivar, kind of explain to us the mission of the Soil Testing Lab.
Yes, Jim. The Soil Testing Lab really has a couple main missions, and one of them, of course, is to provide analytical service to farmers, extension, and homeowners, basically the test results for soils, tissue, and water samples. But the other aspect of the lab is also providing recommendations for producers in terms of what to do with those numbers, what kind of fertility program they should be doing based on those results. And I think that's perhaps one of the most important aspects also that we do here in the lab, and we provide that information.
So the Soil Testing Lab is just doing the actual analysis is just half of the issue. It's the recommendations and what the producers or homeowners do.
Absolutely, and like I say, that's very important part of the mission that we have, because providing accurate information in terms of specific information for soils and environment that we have here in Kansas is a key component, and for that we really require to have extensive research, to do correlation, calibration, make sure that soil tests that we are using in Kansas are the appropriate ones for the soils that we have here in the state.
I want you to define that correlation, calibration aspect you just mentioned there. So if someone from Texas sent you a soil sample, what do you do?
Yes, again, our recommendation is specific for Kansas. So the way we develop that is, like I say, with research, and research been going on for many years at Kansas State University. And that correlation calibration basically means that we are evaluating the soil test in terms of what kind of response we are seeing in the crops, both nutrient uptake and yield response. So when we have a number, say a soil test phosphorus of 20, we know that what that means for our crops, for our conditions here. And for that, we basically need to develop field research to provide that kind of information. And that value can be different from state to state. Again, depending on
different types of soils,
different types of soils, different types of conditions, different types of crops. And again, all of that has an effect in terms of that recommendation that we are providing.
Well, I want to, you just don't put one location out there. You have to do this at many different parts of the state, different soil types, and we're talking about 0, 20, 40, 60, 80 rates, right?
Absolutely.
Explain that a little bit.
Yes, and that's very important, Jim, because in our case in Kansas, we do have a lot of multiple environments and soils as we go from east to west.
Sure.
And actually, our recommendations reflects that. Recommendations can change slightly when you are in eastern, for example, southeast Kansas, or if you are in northwest Kansas, because of the soils, because of the conditions. So what you are saying in terms of being able to develop, establish research in multiple locations is going to be a key to be able to capture that difference that we have in environment and soils across the state.
We got to take a break right now, so hang on. I want to talk a little bit more about that. Folks, we'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
This segment brought to you by the Arab Shrine Circus, coming to the Kansas Expo Center February 15th through the 18th. For ticket information, visit ArabShrineCircus.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, it's Shrine Circus time! Enjoy a weekend of thrills, chills, and tons of fun at the Kansas Expo Center February 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th. See lions and tigers, elephants, high-flying trapeze artists, and watch a man shot out of a cannon. And Johnny Rocket, everyone's favorite, is back. For more information, visit ArabShrineCircus.com and be sure to thank our corporate sponsor, Security Benefit, the Arab Shrine Circus. Don't you dare miss it.
Tarwater Farm and Home has been family owned and operated since its beginning in 1978. What you need for farm and agriculture, lawn and garden, clothing and footwear, and so much more. You'll be surprised at what you'll find in this huge store. They have what you need and lots of it. So come take a look. You'll discover that customer service is first and foremost. Always has been with the Tarwaters. Tarwater Farm and Home, 4107 North Topeka Boulevard.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. With us we have Dora Ruiz Diaz, our soil extension specialist and director of the soil testing lab. We were talking just before the break about the calibration studies you do around the state, and many of them over many years. Tell me how you do the increment. How do you know where you get that response?
Yes, a typical study will obviously evaluate, like you mentioned, multiple rates of nutrients, and we're talking about phosphorus, potassium, and so on. And so basically, again, we want to be able to correlate the value of soil tests that we have with the response that we are seeing to fertilizer applications. And for that, we not only need multiple locations, but we also need multiple rates of fertilizer to make that evaluation, basically, in terms of the response.
So where you get the, I'm thinking of that optimal curve, that point of no return, or
Absolutely, and that's ultimately is one of the key things that we want to develop. But again, it's important to keep in mind that there's a lot of work behind developing that kind of information. Like you say, multiple locations across a state like Kansas that has multiple environments and soils is very important. And again, many years. It's not just me. Many years. And many people here at Kansas State University contribute to develop that kind of information.
Well, the K-State lab is not a big lab by any stretch of the imagination. There's a lot of labs, or a number of labs around the region that are much bigger. But talk a little bit about the volume and how it works. Basically.
Yes, again, our lab is basically is probably a small lab comparing, like you say, to other labs. In terms of volume of samples, we are probably analyzing about 30 to 40,000 soil samples per year, about 15 to 20,000 tissue samples, and 5 to 10,000 water samples. So those are maybe the main things that we focus on. Of course, we do get other type of samples, but soils, tissue, and water samples are kind of the main things that we look at. Our main clientele will be our extension system in the state. So extension agents, they will be sending samples to us from producers, as well, again, as homeowners. But we also work obviously directly with producers. Some producers will send their samples to us, and we will provide recommendations directly to them, again, based on our research. The other aspect, again, like I mentioned, is water, and again, that's as a
kind of goes hand in hand with the fertility issue.
Yes, it does, and especially when we are talking about the environmental side of things, because there's an economic aspect to being able to put the right amount of fertilizer, which is very important, but also we don't want to have too much nutrients out there in terms of a potential risk of water quality concerns, runoff, and so on. So again, we do have some significant amount of samples for water, as well as the environmental side of things for soil testing.
You mentioned you do homeowners and farmers and researchers as well. So kind of break that down. Is it half or better that are farmers and the county agent extension system, and what is it? I don't know.
Yes, more than half probably of all what we do is coming from extension and farmers, and then a smaller amount of what we are doing is research. And again, these are providing service to researchers, not just here at Kansas State, but actually other universities in Kansas, and even out-of-state researchers that send their samples to us.
We got to take a break. Folks, we'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well in their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we're glad to answer it and work with you.
Hi, I'm Randy.
And I'm Paul from PFI.
We would like to personally invite you to stop by PFI, home of Boot Daddies.
PFI is America's Western store, covering over 50,000 square feet.
Over 25,000 boots.
Visit Saddle City with the largest selection of saddles and tack anywhere.
A huge selection of hats at Big Spur Hat Company in PFI Town.
And choose from the best brands of clothing and accessories for the entire family.
PFI, located on Highway 65 at the Battlefield exit in Springfield. And I'm not kidding.
That's My Farm. It's brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Shroyer, and Dorvar Ruiz Diaz didn't run off during that break, and I'm glad that you didn't too. So, Dorvar, let's say I'm a producer out there, and I know what the wheat prices are, and I know what the corn prices are. They're not really good at this particular point. So I'm in the mindset that I don't want to spend a whole lot of money on this crop that's coming up or next year. Is that a good thought process that I have, or should I be thinking otherwise?
That's a very good point, Jim, and actually we have that comment pretty often. Obviously, producers are looking at ways to cut costs as much as possible, but research actually from colleagues at the Department of Ag Econ here at Kansas State University shows that soil testing perhaps is the one thing that is even more important to be soil testing at these, under these conditions of low grain prices and tough economic situations.
That's almost counterintuitive, but it's not really.
It is, but if you think about it, Jim, basically, when you have again tight budgets, you want to be able to make the right decision, and to make the right decision, you really need to have good information. And soil testing, that's basically what's giving you. It's giving you the accurate information in terms of what you have there already in terms of nutrients. And obviously, you don't want to put more fertilizer than you have to. On the other hand, if you are short of some nutrients, you want to make sure and put in that nutrient so you are not losing yields, because
that may be the limiting factor.
That may be the limiting factor. And so at the same time, obviously, you don't want to be leaving bushels out there that you can capture with proper nutrient management. So again, that's really the key there. And like I said, there have been some studies evaluating that. And again, the value of soil testing, if anything, has a lot more value in times where the importance of the information is critical, like now.
Well, also you think about after obviously we didn't have a drought this year. We did for a while, but then that cleared up. But in drought years, you can really have a lot of carryover in nutrients. And if you're just used to putting on X amount of nitrogen or phosphorus or potassium, you could be running into some problems.
Absolutely, and that's actually one part of the mission that we have here in the lab, the soil testing lab, is to look at that kind of things. And a few years ago, during a severe drought, we looked at a little bit of a survey of how much residual nitrogen we have in some fields in the state. And it's very impressive, Gene. You can find things anywhere from 100 pounds to 150, 200 pounds of nitrogen in the field. obviously in that kind of situation,
your wheat wouldn't need anything. Your milo probably wouldn't need anything.
Yes.
Maybe corn just a little. Maybe
a little. And again, you want to know that. You want to know that and be able to save money on that fertilizer. And obviously, soil test can give you that information. But you mentioned, this year we have good yields. It's also happening. It's also important to look at soil test. Why? Because we're probably going to have very little nutrients carry over. So that's also important to know. That means maybe we need to make a little bit more adjustments next year as well. So it's basically not just when you have drought conditions, but also when you have good yields. Remember, we are removing more nutrients as well when we have good yields. So again, soil test is going to be able to, it's going to give you that information to make those adjustments.
Dora, we got to take a break. Folks, we'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Welcome to our Bar B, 8,000 plus square feet Western store with something for everyone in the family. We have boots, belts, hats, jeans, anything you could want to outfit you and your horse. Come visit our line of saddles. We have 400 plus new and used saddles in stock. We offer tack, grooming supplies, headstalls, breast collars, you name it, we've got it for you and your horse. That's our Bar B, 1 mile east of Highway 4 on Northeast 39th. Our Bar B, where Western is a way of life.
BootDaddy.com proudly supports Equifest of Kansas, Kansas's premier all-breed horse fair and exposition, presented by the Kansas Horse Council. Equifest of Kansas brings the nation's leading equine clinicians and entertainers to the Topeka Expo Center. Enjoy 3 full days of education, entertainment, and shopping, including the Jumper Classic, breed exhibition, top horse versatility competition, ranch rodeo, and more. It's an event for the whole family. For more information or to buy tickets, visit equifestofks.com.
I'm a patient of Kansas Regenerative Medicine in Manhattan. I had stem cell therapy in my hips and my left knee. My wife and I both are patients. We went down there the same day in November. Since then, my hips are feeling a lot better. I can work now most of the day if I want to. And before, if I worked in the morning, I was done in the afternoon, or if I worked in the afternoon, I was sure enough done for the rest of the day.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Shroyer, and with us we have Dorivar Ruiz-Diaz, the director of the soil testing lab. Dorivar, in a lab situation, you have various technicians, various machines. How do you know you're accurate?
Absolutely, and that's a very, very important question, Jim. And actually, we get that question very often from producers. Is the number I'm getting, is it good to make that decision? Because, I mean, the decision we are making is going to be have significant implications, economical implications. So there's really two components to that, Jim. And one of them is what happens in the field, how we are collecting those samples. That's going to be a key first step.
You don't give your hired man or woman the bucket and say, go take a soil sample and just walk in the gate and dig right there. One sample for 160 acres, right?
Yes, absolutely. We always emphasize that, but it still happens sometimes. And like you mentioned, it's very important to collect samples that are going to be representative of the field.
Right.
That means we want to take multiple subsamples in an area that we are treating, and we want to pay attention to a few other things as well. The number of subsamples that we are collecting, the instruments that we are using. We want to make sure we use plastic buckets and buckets that are clean, that are not going to be contaminating our soil samples. Right. We want to make sure we are collecting samples at the right depth. Again, our recommendations are going to be based on certain sampling depth. For Kansas, we use 6 inches for the immobile nutrients, 24 inches for the mobile nutrients.
Like nitrogen.
Like nitrogen. So again, that's going to be also another key aspect. And then, of course, once we collect those samples, we want to make sure, and we are not sitting in the pickup for several days and that sort of thing. So we treat that sample well until it gets to the lab. Wow. Once the sample gets here in the lab, we do have a very strict protocol, steps that we follow. And actually, our lab is certified with a national program, which is the North American Proficiency Test program. And this is one example, Jim, that they send us some samples that we test several times a year, and they basically provide us feedback in terms of how we are doing, in terms of the accuracy. So again, that variability in terms of values here in the lab, chances are very low that we're going to have issues. Most of the time, it's usually anything that happens in the field and to the point that the sample gets here.
Okay, thanks, Dorbar. We got to take a break. Folks, we'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
All over the country, more and more communities are making the change to biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil, and the decision continues improving the health and welfare for millions of Americans while adding billions to our national economy.
We do business with Blueville because of the quality of their work. It is excellent quality, and because they make a commitment to their customers.
We enjoy the benefits of hiring a good company to help us maintain this home.
We will always do business with Blueville. We have for many, many years, and there's no reason for us to look for any other service.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Shroyer, and with us we have Dorivar Ruiz-Diaz, our Extension Soil Fertility Specialist and Director of the Soil Testing Lab. Dorivar, we've talked a lot about the lab, the mission, and that sort of thing, but how does the sample get here?
Yes, that's a very good question, Jim, and there are really many options for a producer or homeowner to send the samples. One of them that is very common is through the county agent, the extension office. Basically, the producer can work with the county agent and the extension office at the county level, and they can send the samples to us. Another approach is also for the producer to send the samples directly to us. Actually, in our website, we give information for shipping instructions, as well as provide shipping labels, actually, that you can print at home, put it to the box, and that will get to us pretty much overnight.
From the time you receive a sample, how long does it take before the producer or the homeowner gets the results?
Yes, so once the sample gets here, we usually have a turnaround time of about 2 days. So within 2 days, you should get back results. And right now, there's a few ways the results are getting to the customer. One of them is, again, through the website. Actually, the customer can set up an account, and we are giving all the results, all the status of the process in that website. But also, we are sending an electronic report via email. So as soon as the results are ready, we provide the recommendations. We review the recommendations, make sure they are accurate, and then immediately we send it via email. That way, that's available to the producer immediately, basically. Again, we can also provide the reports via regular mail, but more and more, we don't have many people requesting that.
You keep the sample on hand for 2 or 3 months?
That's right, and that's one of the main reasons why we do that, is because, again, we want to give some time to the customer to look at those results, make sure they don't have any additional questions, because if they do have more questions, like you say, we keep actually the sample here for about 3 months. So if they have any questions about, they may want to look at other nutrients, for example, we can go back and retest and provide additional information on that same sample. That way the producer don't have to go back and collect samples from the field.
One question I used to get all the time, and I'm sure you do too, is how often should I soil test?
Yes, and that's another very important question. And typically, we will recommend for pH, organic matter, P and K, at least
basics. That's
a basic. Yeah, that's a basic analysis, and that will be at least every 3 to 4 years.
Okay.
And again, depending on how things are and how much information we have, we may even need to do that more often. Again, if you are a farmer that you are just starting to work on a specific field, you may not have much information on that.
Right.
So in that kind of situation, you may want to be looking at soil testing maybe every 2 years until you have a better feeling about what kind of values we have
baseline,
there.
sort
A
of.
baseline, yes.
Okay. Dorvar, I really appreciate you taking time to tell us a little bit about the K-State Soil Testing Lab. We appreciate it. I'm sure producers enjoyed that. Folks, thank you for being with us, and don't forget, next week about this same time, we're going to have another show of That's My Farm. See you then.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.